feel free to join another time.
Yep, we'll see you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me talk.
Get that taken care of. Okay. Yeah. If nobody else had anything else to say about that, we can go ahead and move on to a different topic.
No, I kind of said my piece.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Oh, thank God.
Okay. God, I made way too many topics. Oops.
I'm gonna lose my mind
I mean,
against
probably
this
the
guy.
easiest one to talk about. The recent Fox
I
News
swear.
poll showed like the 4 major Democrats were all leading on Trump. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that or not, but if so,
Oh,
I want to
God.
start by asking if
Here we
anybody
go.
actually read the statistical report on it.
I'm just gonna
I don't really
say-
like polls, honestly.
What'd you say, True?
I was just gonna say I don't read American polls, so I'm not aware of this, I'm afraid.
Oh, we can switch to another topic then, yeah.
I mean, you don't have to. Like, if you want to talk about this, you can talk about this, but I don't think I can contribute anything to...
Here, True, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So, what do you think about the recent G7? I know, Boris made a lot of leeway with certain world leaders.
I think Boris is playing to a domestic audience.
Okay.
I'm not convinced that he actually accomplished anything necessarily at this event, but that's it's more about like him getting his side out so that it appears in the local newspapers back home, and then the newspapers report on what he said, and then it makes him look better. But anything important is probably not really dealt with at these meetings anyway, and I think the same is probably true for basically every person who was there.
I'm just surprised he was able to agree with a lot with Merkel.
Well, I
certain
mean,
issues.
the whole reason these events exist is so that they can all stand on stage and talk about how much they agree with each other anyway. Like,
You're a bad guy, Frozen.
Trying to
obviously,
get
Thank you
you
for
out.
that
they have
suggestion.
a lot of disagreements about a lot of things at the moment, but they need to show unity, so that's what they do.
For those who don't know, I
Okay.
don't mean to talk
Yeah,
over them.
everyone
If you
comes out
guys
and
are
looks
interested
good.
in hearing
Yeah.
So
this,
it helps everybody, basically.
we watched
Do you
a
think he's gonna be able to make a
ANCAP
deal
music
within 30
video,
days?
rap video
No.
yesterday.
Not
And-
we're gonna no-deal Brexit, baby. Get ready for it.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
One of the funniest things
heard,
I've ever seen.
No deal Brexit when the government's closed. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, but this probably isn't a good topic to talk about either, to be honest, because it'd just be me talking about it. So I don't know if there's like something that Leon's got, but I can talk about it with you later if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm all way with. I like British politics.
Yeah, fair enough. It would just be me talking a lot though, which I'm not against. I'm sure people love hearing me talk, but
Yeah, you're British ASMR.
yeah, that's what someone said in the chat a couple of days ago.
Hey,
All right, what's
own
the next
it.
topic?
What?
What topic are we talking about right now?
Okay, so I'm just gonna read off a few of the topics. Some of them were recommended to go through some like really hot bills right now. So that Fox News poll
Lecterfan
one,
and
I think it happened
Right
yesterday.
Side of History are both Trump supporters.
Citizens will citizenship not given out to children of service members when they're born overseas. And then as far as bills goes, protecting access to student transcripts. So right now, college universities can like withhold student transcripts if they haven't paid all their money forward. And this bill would pretty much ban it. There's the Fairness for High-Skilled Immigrants Act, which pretty much just increases the number of immigrants allowed into the U.S. If they're considered high-skilled or if they're on a family visa.
Mm-hmm.
Bipartisan background checks bill pretty much requires background checks for all firearm sales in the country. There's the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol Act, which is self-explanatory, and the Assault Weapons Ban of 2019.
Okay.
Just on the student transcript one, is that when you say transcript, you mean like the final results that the student has gotten?
Yeah. So
Okay.
pretty much the transcript for, at least in America, is pretty much a full list of what degrees you got, did you get a minor, what grades were, and everything. And right now, a lot of universities will withhold that from students if they haven't actually paid their full money, like if they owe money. The problem with that, though, is by withholding that, some companies want to see those transcripts as evidence they have a degree. So the universities are like, pretty much pay us the money. They're like, I need a job first. And it's gotten to this whole, and this is, it was personal to me since I used to work in university.
Sounds
So
like
I
a
had
bit of a
plenty of
catch-22.
students. Wait, what?
I'm sorry, just saying it sounds like a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, I had plenty of students come to me like, I can't get my transcripts. And despite I probably shouldn't have, I actually did have access to their transcripts and gave them to some students I wasn't supposed to. because it didn't feel right to me to withhold these students from graduating and getting a job. Just
Fighting
because,
a good fight.
yeah,
No,
it's not a big thing, but it was personal to me.
Thank you for subscribing on YouTube. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mute myself again.
Wait, and is there some new law that is being proposed for this whole transcript issue, or how did that end up in the news?
Yeah, this is actually a bill going through. I've got all the links. I can send it to you if you want.
Well, just what does the bill do? What is what's the new law say?
Let me see what the bill does. The past act would prevent any college or university, private one, holding a student's transcript on account of defaulting on their loans. If passed, it would take effect beginning 2019-2020 academic year, which is to say this September. It looks like it was proposed by a representative Democrat from Nevada. Yeah. Yeah, all of these. I've got the full links on my Twitch channel, but I can send you any of them.
So, Leon, you're an advisor?
I used to be an advisor, a professor, researcher. Like, I did all sorts of things in university, but not anymore. Pretty much the university refused to pay me more money for finishing my PhD, so I drew a line in the sand saying, no, I want a better position, more money, or I'm leaving. So I left. Which is hilarious because...
sorry, you go ahead.
I say it's hilarious because nobody else knows how to use the robots like I do. So, yeah, nobody knows how to network those, which they'll figure that out in probably another week.
Mm.
But yeah, that's what I used to do.
So is that new bill a federal bill, or is it a state proposal?
These are all federal bills.
See, that would be my initial response would be like, look, if you want to do that, like, do it at the state level. There's no reason to have a federal level law that basically takes issues away from the states. Like, I think that should be a state level issue. I'm not entirely opposed to it at the state level. At the federal level, I am. I mean, to play the obvious devil's advocate position would be, well, these people owe the universities money, and this is a way that universities are have leverage to try to collect on what they're rightfully owed, and so they should be allowed to. But I would oppose it on the federal level, just on constitutional and federalist grounds.
I personally don't see anything particularly objectionable about this proposal. It seems eminently reasonable to me.
Same here.
If you want people to be able to pay your debt, it's probably in your interests to actually help them do that. And if people can't get jobs because they don't have access to transcripts, then how can you reasonably expect them to pay you any money?
There seems like better ways of forcing them to give you money than holding their transcripts.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, though, that's an argument that you would need to make to the university itself. And if the university is hurting itself because they're preventing people from getting jobs who could otherwise pay them, then that's a bad business decision. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you got to quick run to the federal government and have the federal government come down from on high and dictate what universities can and cannot do.
I mean, I don't see any reason why not to.
Basic freedom. I mean, it's a basic freedom issue. They can be able to. There shouldn't be any law forcing them to do whatever the hell the federal government wants them to do.
I kind of feel like part of it, though, like, shouldn't some of our laws try to protect people? And especially these are protecting the people, especially considering they're like defaulting on their loans that probably need more help than the university. And also, this only said, like, default on loans. I know the university I worked at, they would, like, restrict your loans if you even owed money for, like, a parking ticket. Like, I'm all small things as well.
I'm all for laws protecting people, but you have to weigh the protection of what is being provided against the costs on the other side and the infringement on the other person's freedom. And so while one law you're saying protects people, on the other hand, it infringes on the freedom of the universities to do as they please.
lctrfan, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're using a free markets. This is about free markets ideas, right?
It's not necessarily even about free markets, about freedom of contract. I mean, they should be able to enter into if a university wants to enter into a contract with a student that has a provision in it that says, by the way, if you don't pay, then we don't have to give you your transcript. That's a basic freedom of contract issue as well.
So, do you believe that there are not contracts out there that are inherently wrong? So, let's say I want to work at a business, but one of the requirements to work at the business. Now, I know I'm using a straw man here, but I'm just stating, an obvious thing like I have to lose an arm in order to work at this business.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, you can. Of course, there's contracts that are invalid as against public policy, and that courts
Well, no,
will
I mean,
enforce
I'm
to
not
enforce
saying
them.
policy. I'm saying that's morally wrong.
Certainly, people can enter into morally wrong contracts. Absolutely. Prostitution would be one as well.
Yeah, and
On,
in
on the
your
topic
opinion,
of on the topic of these schools, just get it back to the story on hand. Someone in my chat brings up a great point. Do they receive federal funds?
Well, they're almost exclusively funded through federally funded student loans. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much every university is, which is why they have to comply with Clery Act and VOW.
Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't they have jurisdiction over that?
No, they of course they would have jurisdiction, the federal government, but just because the federal government can under existing law, or historically since the 1930s when the Constitution was changed to allow the Interstate Commerce Clause to be used to justify almost anything, doesn't mean that it's right.
I mean, I have no problem with it. So, I mean,
Yeah,
really, it boils down
though.
to just worrying about state sovereignty, which we haven't had since we reunified after the Civil War.
oh, we had state sovereignty on certain issues.
Yeah, there's still tons of state sovereignty.
I mean, more or less, but the classic example is when we first were these United States, and now we're the United States. You see what I'm saying? So federal law has jurisdiction over all of us, no matter what, and that wasn't exactly true back then.
It was true. That's totally wrong. We've had the supremacy clause in the U.S. Constitution from the very beginning.
I think you're confusing it with is it the Federalist Papers? Is that the one where it pretty much treated states like different countries?
No, the Federalist Papers were just writings amongst the founding fathers arguing in favor of the Constitution.
That we ran.
The Articles of Confederation.
Yeah. I think you're confusing it with that.
There's no doubt that the federal government is the supreme government and has the law of the land, but the whole reason behind having a federal system hasn't changed since the beginning of this country, and the reason is that you have local governments handle issues, and then you have county governments, and you have state governments, and you have federal governments, because the government that's closest to the people is going to be more responsive. It's going to be better ran. And so that's why the entire reason we have a federal system with states rights and county governments and local governments and city governments, and this whole idea how we have to run to Washington D.C. and have Washington D.C. dictate to all 50 states every little pet policy proposal of somebody is absurd.
Well, I mean, some policies do need to be passed at a federal level because passing it via state.
And why would some states? So could you give me a state that would benefit by not having this?
The point is that that's an argument that you can make to the state, and it should be the state's determination of whether or not they want to do it. It shouldn't be dictated from the federal government. That's the point. So if you think it's a good idea, then make that to your state legislature, have your state legislature pass the law, and have your governor sign it.
So it's not really a problem
based on morality or anything like that.
It's not really a problem of the bill that you're talking about. You're just upset that it's being done federally, period.
Exactly, because we have a federal system set up for a reason, and the federal government over the last 80 to 90 years has expanded into the areas where it's traditionally handled by states, and you get better government, better laws, more effective and better enforcement at the state level and the local level. And so this idea that we have to have the federal government do everything that we want it done is I just think that's absurd. It's like, go to your state government.
First of all, no, we don't get better laws at the state level. We really largely do not.
Why not?
And not to mention what I brought up earlier, if they're receiving federal funds, there's no reason why they can't make this law a federal law, because it affects the federal funding of these universities. Does it not?
I'm not saying that they can't. I'm saying that it's bad policy.
I know you're saying they shouldn't, but The thing is,
Well, you're
it's
saying
not bad
because
policy to do
You're
that.
saying it's bad policy because it's been passed at the federal level, but that's not an argument against the idea itself.
Yeah.
That's only an argument about where you do it.
Yeah.
It is. It's a constitutional structural argument.
Okay,
That's
but do
my
you, have,
only
do you have
point.
an argument about whether it's a good or bad idea to do it at a state or federal level? Because I'm not American, so obviously the American Constitution doesn't mean a great deal to me.
Yeah, if it was done at a state level, you still have arguments against it, including number one, freedom of contract. Number two, the universities should be free to try to collect their money. They shouldn't have to give out services to people that aren't paying their bills. Period.
But again,
Sure.
because they receive, you said, you agreed with me that because they receive federal funding, that they fall under federal jurisdiction.
The federal government can attach whatever strings it wants to federal funds.
That's not an answer. Yes. The answer is yes. That means they do have the jurisdiction to do it. So the argument about where it comes from kind of doesn't matter because they still receive funding from the federal government. They have jurisdiction, and you agreed with that earlier. You may not.
I never said they didn't. You're missing the point. I never said they didn't. I never said they couldn't. I said it's bad. It's a bad idea.
Here, Marky, I think what's really being caught right here is he's not really against the bill. He's just against how it's made. Which I mean, I think that just really means that any federal bill he would really be against unless it's
the constant. If you guys don't know that the U.S. Constitution creates a federal government of limited powers and enumerated powers. If the federal government doesn't have a specific enumerated power within the U.S. Constitution that authorizes its action, that is a power under the 10th Amendment that's reserved to the states and to the people. And so there are absolutely certain things that the federal government should be doing, including an army, post offices, roads. There's a whole list of enumerated powers, and there's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government needs to be getting into the issue of how transcripts are handed out to people that don't pay their bills. That's not a federal issue. That's a state or even local issue.
Well, I mean, if you feel like you got solid ground with that, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you are a lawyer, right?
Correct.
So why wouldn't you take this to the Supreme Courts?
Well, actually, right now might be an interesting time to take it to the Supreme Court since we've now got a 5-4 potentially conservative majority, although John Roberts is a little bit problematic. But no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying under the current U.S. Supreme Court jurisprudence that this would be thrown out as unconstitutional. That's not what I'm saying. I admit that it would be that they're perfectly fine. They're perfectly capable of doing it. What I'm saying is it's a bad idea because it's inconsistent with the idea of federalism. I'm not saying that the federal government doesn't have the constitutional power under current U.S. Supreme Court jurisprudence, which could potentially change given the makeup of the Supreme Court.
Well,
It feels like you're having a different conversation than what we're having, though.
He kind of is, honestly.
I just made one point about the structural aspect of it, and you guys either can't understand it or can't move past it. You might as well just say, okay, wow, he has an idea about federalism and states' rights. Okay, move on. Like, you don't have to keep trying to argue against it by saying, well, they get money. Well, it's like, I never said they don't get federal money. I never said the federal government can't do it. I'm making a structural argument about how to go about making good policy and where it should be done.
In other words, yes, you're having a different conversation than what we're trying to have.
So, yeah, we all agree that under your particular interpretation of the Constitution that this shouldn't be happening, but that's your interpretation of the Constitution and not even necessarily the one that the Supreme Court would go with. You know,
exactly.
It kind of means nothing in this context at all when we're talking about a specific law that is passed. It's a side note.
No, it's a specific argument about, are we not talking about whether we should support this law or not? I'm giving you specific arguments about why it's a bad idea.
And your problem boils down to
guys,
some laws should
I
not be passed at the federal
just
level.
To move on from this topic.
Yeah, I agree with right side of history. We could move on to the next part of this topic, but.
Well, so the one thing I do want to point out, it looks like right now this is something
exactly
that is
what I was worried about with this guy.
State.
Hey, Thriller.
But it also looks like it's getting enough co-sponsors, and there isn't like a status quo practice against it. This probably could. This has a decent chance of being passed.
Thank you, Leon.
The Senate actually
Thank you.
Listens to it.
There's no doubt that traditionally regulation of universities is a state level issue. There's no doubt about that. Historically, universities and regulations over universities are 100% a state level issue. So, exactly.
I agree with that to an extent that some things are handled poorly, but that
It's
we
just a
have to
historical
nitpick every
fact.
single thing if we want to get into that.
It's just a historical and legal fact that regulation of universities is a state level issue.
Well, has been, but tell me if I'm wrong, but there has been some bills federally that deals with colleges, period.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, that's my point. Is the federal government's gone way overboard with what it's getting involved with.
Okay, I mean, I think we should go on to another topic because this would be more of a debate on that topic rather than the bill itself.
That was my
Yeah,
point.
probably.
Okay. Anybody have something else to say about it then?
Well, I would just say that largely I don't agree with the idea of withholding transcripts until payment is received, because that can really kneecap people. It's just another means to kneecap the general person from not being able to move on, with their life in a lot of ways. They can't pursue any other schooling this way if that school didn't work out for them. And if that schooling didn't work out for them, they largely have a problem paying this back.
I basically just agree with what Mark says.
Yeah.
I don't know what the practice in my country is, by the way. I tried to find out whilst we were talking, but I don't know how they handle it in the UK.
So, when it comes to legislation, does the EU ever contribute to that when it comes to universities?
No, because it wouldn't fall within I don't think it falls within a competence that the EU has. It might do. I don't know what all the competences of the EU are off the top of my head. But just off the top of my head, I don't think it is. Though it might be. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. All right. One thing I know I wanted to move to another topic, but I just found this while searching. If you literally go to like the Department of Education site, their about page, literally the first thing you do say that says right here, education is primarily a state and local responsibility in the United States.
Nice.
That's the one thing I want to add to that.
Okay.
I generally I would support this bill, but we can have a different argument about who should be represented.
I mean, frankly, I'm kind of surprised because at every university I've ever been to, you just log on to your student account and then you can see whatever your transcript is right there and print it off whenever you need it.
We're not really that robust here.
Some universities, in my experience, do that, but not all of them.
I've been to quite a few
access an unofficial version, which some universities won't accept. So, especially for like transfer students, if you're transferring from a small like 2-year school to a 4-year school, the new university needs an official transcript. That way, they know that you didn't like alter the document in any way to represent.
No, okay, yeah, no, you get an official one at the end of the year as well, but usually you just get that when you graduate. So.
Oh, no, even in the United States, or at least in my experiences, you don't even get an official one. You still have to order. So you usually like $25 to get it sent. Yeah.
Good grief, they're ripping you off, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
That's why a lot of people don't like universities here.
Yeah. No, they're absolutely
$25
ripping us off.
A piece of paper and stamp it. Good grief, you're being ripped off.
Well, education's about making money, not about educating.
They place in universities.
All the SJW left-wing universities I've been to in Europe are not quite like that yet.
I haven't seen any like screwing people over when it comes to trade schools that much.
No, it does happen.
I mean, I've heard stories. I don't have anything like personally about that, so.
Yeah, I went to a trade school previously. That's the largest part of my student debt, and found out afterwards that I was basically lied to about the trade, even really being profitable, or the schooling actually being, putting me in a position where I could actually get a job from that.
Was this a private one? I heard a lot of private ones do that.
Yeah, for profit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did my undergraduate degree in the United Kingdom. I spent a year in Finland, and I also got a master's degree in the Netherlands. So I've got some experiences of different university structures. But that's about it.
All right. I think it's a good time to move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how much discussion there is about this, but HR 1044, Fairness for High-Skilled Immigrants Act of 2019. So this is pretty much a bill to say right now in the United States, the amount of immigrants we take is like per capita measured, but it would make kind of extra rule sets to allow more people to come in for like high-skilled work visas or for if they're family-sponsored visas. So it's pretty much a bill allowing more people into the United States under very specific circumstances.
I don't know. That's a hard one for me to decide.
I'm okay with it. I think we should
Yeah.
allow anyone who wants to be here to be here.
I definitely disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean, even if you don't agree with that, I think I don't see much of a problem with high-skilled immigrants anyway, presuming that's who the bill's targeted at.
Yeah, so this bill is specifically like high-skilled and family, so it's not just like anybody. It doesn't have any like for like refugees that I saw.
So I couldn't rock up like tomorrow and just be like, hey, I'm coming to the US.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, isn't it more focused on the people coming up from Latin America and South America?
I know a lot. We get a lot of skilled workers from like the Asian regions, especially from India, when it comes to the technical field.
Yeah, there is a part in here for China. Let me go ahead and just read. This bill increases the per country capita on family-based immigration visas from 7% of the total number of such visas that year to 15%, and eliminates the 7% cap for employment-based immigrant visas. It also removes the onset that reduces the number of visas for individuals from China. So I guess that's 3 different things in this bill that are worth talking about.
Yeah, I see why they're doing that. Our immigration has been way down for a long time. A lot more people are leaving the country than coming in. Immigration is good for a country. There's been studies that prove that, and we need that outside force to come in. And if we're gonna block everybody coming from the south from doing that, I mean, we got to get it from somewhere.
Before we start this conversation, I just want to be clear: do we want to start this conversation? Because it's going to be a very long one, and I don't think we'll be able to get to the other topics.
To be honest, I'm not sure that it will be that long. I mean, I personally don't have much to say. Just that it doesn't sound like a bad idea to me, but I don't know much about the details of this bill.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying I don't think there's going to be a lot to. These are all like for immigration. I think most of the debates between like left and right is on illegal immigration that we.
Yeah, no, but I think that's what. Did you say Mercy Merker? How do you say your name?
Mark Monkey.
Mark Monkey. Okay. I think that's what Mark Monkey's trying to say right now. Am I wrong about having more immigration and all that, and letting people, if they want to come here, in?
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure. Oh, sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
That's what I mean. Like, if we start having that talk, it's gonna be way longer than just talking about the actual bill.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
any
then let's
topics we
focus
don't
on.
get to, I'll do this again on Monday, so we get to them then.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual bill. What's does anyone have any disagreement with it?
Oh, I'm 100% opposed to it, and for various reasons. Number one, I'm in favor of merit-based immigration as President Trump has proposed. Number two, we are taking in over 1 million illegal immigrants every year. Number three, this bill increased the family visas, which is what causes the chain migration. And number four, our entire system is completely broken down right now, and we need to reform the whole system. There's no doubt about that. And the idea of allowing high skilled immigrants, that sounds great, politically great. I'm all in favor of it, but the idea of just massively increasing family and skilled immigrants without actually switching the whole system over to more of a merit-based system, and frankly increasing the overall numbers, I think is also a problem.
Yeah, what was that China bit in there? Matt, if you could repeat that.
It also removes an onset that reduces the number of visas for individuals from China.
So now more Chinese people could come here.
Yeah, essentially.
I think the overall problem with having a merit-based system, especially in the system that we're in now, the way things are now, like I said, we have more people leaving the country than coming in. We're at record low immigration right now, and have been for.
True.
Yeah, I don't see any.
It is actually true.
That's not true.
Look it up.
Wait.
Look
Before we start saying it's not true, can he present us information? Because it could be true. We don't know. Anyway, by the way, Leon,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure you don't watch him, but there's this one guy out there called Black Pigeon Speaks. Recently, he did a video about some governments released data about our economy and how our current taxation won't fulfill the bills. You know, these different programs we are currently running. If you really are into like looking into governmental, know-how and what the government's doing, I think you might find that a little interesting.
Okay. Yeah. What was the name again?
Black Pigeon Speaks. It's his most recent video.
So according to pewresearch.org, the United States has more immigrants than any other country. There's more than 40 million people living here. The U.S. foreign-born population reached a record 44.4 million in 2017, and it's continued to go up. So,
Just real quick, when you say that has more immigrants, is that in total or per capita?
I would
think that's in total.
assume total, probably, yeah, total.
Well, don't assume. Does it say per capita or total?
This Pew article doesn't say.
Okay.
But
maybe you could look at the citation or the sources for the article.
I mean, the only
Okay.
reason I bring it up is because it does make a difference. I don't really
Okay.
have much else.
Here
to
it
add
is.
to
Here it
this,
is.
but-
The U.S. has more immigrants than any other country in the world. As of 2015, the United Nations estimate 46.6 million people living in the United States were not born there. 1 in 5 international migrants live in the U.S. U.S. immigrant population is 4 times that of the world's next largest immigration destination, which is Germany. So, which is actually 12 million. So, yeah, it's a raw number. But the point is, and actually, the actual share of the U.S. population is also near an absolute historic high. And so 13.6% is the share of the immigrant share of the U.S. population. So this idea that we're not taking in enough immigrants or that we're having a net migration outflow is just totally wrong because there's record numbers right now.
I mean, I think there was a recent influx due to the refugee and border crisis, but I mean, largely when Trump took office, we were at a negative rate, and that had been proven.
Well,
no, I think you
like
mean.
that's
I think
like
you
a
mean
talking. That's like a talking point of the left that happened
No,
in a very small period of time during the Great Recession, because weren't any jobs here, and yeah, there was maybe a period of time there when we were in the Great Recession that it was negative, but there's hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants coming across the border every month that DHS is apprehending, and there's over 1 million legal immigrants coming into the United States every year, and that's why you're seeing record numbers in the U.S., and that's according to Pew.
Yep, I found an article saying more migrants are crossing the border this year than previous years.
But again, this is an article talking about border migration, not immigration. Period. When you state that America is having not enough migration, you're kind of just slapping that on both border migration, visas, just looking at the migration from the southern Mexico border doesn't give you the whole picture.
No, definitely not, because there are literally more than 1 million immigrants arrive in the U.S. each year, and and that's legal immigration. The illegal stuff across the border is a totally different ballgame for sure, and that's much harder to track in terms of the numbers, since they're not all kept track of.
I found an article from 2017 stating that yes, we were at the time taking in less immigrants than we're leaving.
So wait, what do you mean by that? By taking in less? You mean like we're not accepting immigrants? Is that what that means?
I'll read this excerpt because I think this is it. I'm kind of skimming right now. The change in migration patterns is I posted in the chat. It's PolitiFact. The change in migration patterns is also reflected in the number of apprehensions on the Mexican border by the U.S. Border Patrol. About 191,000 Mexicans were apprehended along the southern border in the 2016 fiscal year. At the peak of the Mexican immigration in 2007, the Border Patrol apprehended 809,000. Overall, illegal immigration was largely static from 2009 to 2014, as the drop in Mexican immigration was mostly offset by an increase from other areas. such as Central America and Asia. And
So there was no real difference.
The overall number of illegal immigrants in the United States from all countries of origin held steady from 2009 to 2014 at around 11 million, Pew estimates. In 2014, the Border Patrol apprehended more non-Mexicans than Mexicans for the first time in at least 60 years. Mexicans still accounted for about 52%.
Mexican immigration. Mexico's doing great right now. I think the majority of the immigrants are coming from, Southern and Central American countries like Guatemala and
El Salvador, Honduras, yes.
Yeah. But, Mexico's doing good right now. In fact, Mexico's accepting immigrants right now.
I wouldn't say they're doing good, but there's a lot more.
They're better. Overall better. They're doing pretty good, economic-wise.
Yep, they got that great socialist Mexican president.
Yeah, I mean,
he largely hasn't lived up to expectains, but he's doing okay.
I like him.
There's
doing
still
a lot against the cartel.
Yeah, he needs to do more. Cartels are still a huge issue. Largely Mexico is not a safe country.
Here, do you mind if we talk a little bit about this, about the cartels and how to deal with them? Because I'm kind of interested in that talk.
Sure, we can.
I mean, I'm not, unless anyone else is supposed to, obviously.
I mean, I kind of wanted to talk about the bill some more.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go for the bill then. That's fine by me.
Yeah.
So, are we talking about this? Or, yeah?
Talking about the bill still.
Oh, bill. Okay.
Yeah. I don't see a negative at all from having a bill like this. I mean, immigration is good for the country. Immigrants add to economic activity. They just do.
That's a very blank statement. This bill is not just immigration. It's about immigration with limits. There's a reason behind the certain people they're accepting and not accepting.
I mean, meritocracy largely doesn't work anyways. Why would we base it on merit? We can't tell from the standards from another country if they work over here. They might be higher, they might be lower. And if they pass whatever example we give them, that doesn't mean they're going to come here and flourish. Because a lot of times just passing a test just means you pass a test. So the merit argument is kind of silly. It should be more about them being allowed to come here in the first place and, under the system of things, sink or swim.
Your statement that certain countries have better standards when it comes to testing and knowledge-based studies, I think that's a merit on itself, isn't it?
I mean, kinda. But I mean, that doesn't mean that we hold our immigration, put a barrier to our immigration based on that. It's kind of silly. Because a lot of times, like I was just saying, passing a test doesn't mean that you're going to be good as like a woodworker. It doesn't mean you're going to come over here and design the next big plane or the next computer system. It doesn't really mean anything. It means you pass a test. So that's normally what the merit system boils down to, because that's how we would grade it, right?
It doesn't really matter if you're good or not. It just depends on if you can get the job done. Which some, people in our nation, if we have we don't have enough people that can fly planes, then we would benefit from that. Now, if we have plenty of people that can fly planes, and we're taking people who only know how to fly planes, then that wouldn't benefit us.
Okay, but what if we're taking in people who are bad at flying planes?
Well, we would still have someone to fly a plane. They might not do it well, but they still can do it.
Okay. I don't think there's any way that we could honestly find out. That's my big problem with this argument for merit, because we wouldn't be able to actually prove anything.
Well, that's hilarious, because this whole bill is literally merit based. The whole thing about high-skilled immigrants that's merit based, and so the people that are actually proposing this bill are actually recognizing that Trump is right and that we do need a merit-based immigration system.
They're lowering the standards.
We absolutely can tell if people are merit-based immigration, and you can force them to turn over information to prove that they have degrees or that they have skills, that they speak various languages. It's pretty easy to tell if people are going to be a net positive on the country or not. And second of all, nobody disputes that immigration is good for the country and immigration is needed. That's really not up for debate. But that doesn't justify just massively increasing the number of immigrants coming into this country over 1 million. Like, we need reasonable levels of immigration where our country can actually stand to have them assimilated, and we need to check to make sure that they're not going to become a public charge and that they're going to be a net positive on the economy, and that there's a certain limited number that's to where it doesn't destabilize the country and all of these other things. And this bill has to be a Democrat bill, because it's a horrible idea to just arbitrarily increase the number of immigrants, and on the family side where you get chain migration. This is a terrible bill.
Well,
If it didn't have the family-based thing, would you agree to it?
Well, no, because I think the whole system needs to be reformed, and I don't think you don't just go in and say, oh, here, let's just increase high-skilled immigrant visas. I think you need to totally redo the whole system, and frankly, we need to reform the asylum laws and the refugee laws, and we need to increase the number of immigration judges, and there needs to be a lot of things. So no, I don't think just arbitrarily just increasing the number of legal immigrants into the U.S. is a good idea in any shape, manner, or form. And I think actually, when you look at the fact that the U.S. has been taking in over 1 million legal immigrants for decades and decades and decades, and we have the highest percentage right now of per share of the population that's foreign born of any one of the only times in U.S. history that we've had this many immigrants in the country. And we are seeing, I think, some basically like not as much assimilation and some destabilization effects from it. So if anything, I think the proposal to do less legal immigration would be the way to go, not more.
What kind of assimilation and destabilization effect?
Like the percentage of people that like speak English, and how that impacts like hospital services, law enforcement services, court services, things like that. I mean, that's the most basic one, is usually the language one.
So is that it? Like, if you had to speak English to come into the...
I think he means people willing to learn English, not really speaking it.
That's two different things. Like, especially older persons, it's hard.
But that's the idea of assimilation. It's not that they come here, Americanized. It's that when they get here, they slowly, start learning and accepting our ideas on the world.
No, that's exactly right. Right side history. It's not just English language. Like, we want immigrants to actually support the U.S. Constitution, to believe in property rights and freedom and federalism and separation of powers, and to understand American history. And
those are things that even Americans don't agree on already.
So you want conservatives then?
And I think that's what he means by we're having how'd you put it?
Oh, like less assimilation and sort of some destabilizing effects.
Yeah, I think that's what you consider destabilizing, is people who don't agree on, the formation of America and all the things he just listed that we kind of rely on in society.
I can't agree with that, because so many like natural born Americans disagree on these things. To make that like
okay. So just because there are some leftists in America that don't support the U.S. Constitution, that's no reason or justification to then saying, fine, let's let in a bunch of immigrants as well that don't support the Constitution. That's a non sequitur.
So you only want immigrants if they'll vote Republican?
No.
No,
Hold up.
Absolutely not.
First of all,
we just want the ones that won't vote left.
I don't think it's the idea. I mean,
No,
tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think supporting the Constitution is a left or right thing. I know
exactly
some left people, don't like the Constitution for certain things.
I take it when you say support the Constitution, you mean your interpretation of the Constitution, right? I mean, haven't we already?
It's a non
interpretation. There's more than one interpretation of these things.
I think it's the idea of like following the law. The Constitution says.
What country allows immigrants into it that don't follow the law?
Well, I mean, there's certain people, even inside the United States. Both immigrants and people that live here don't follow the law. That's the reason why I have criminals. Criminals are people who don't follow the law, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a civil infraction to illegally come here. It's not like it's basically amounts to a parking ticket or a speeding ticket.
No, it's a crime to cross the border illegally. That's why during the Democrat
Yeah, I know.
presidential
It's a
debates,
civil
you had people actually
infraction.
debating whether or not we should decriminalize
It's a
it.
civil
And the
infraction.
fact that all the Democrat candidates for president said they want to decriminalize crossing the border, and then they want to give free
Wait, hold up.
What?
Who said that?
Dude, did you guys not watch the Democrat debates?
I
They said they wanted
watched
to
both of the
decriminalize it.
debates. Tell me who said that.
All of them. They had it. They raised
Are
their
you
hands.
fucking
Hold on,
kidding
hold on,
me?
hold on.
Oh my god, dude.
Hold on,
No. Tell me one specific proposal that said that they wanted to decriminalize crossing the border.
Okay, sure. Nope,
Yeah,
no
Lester
problem.
Fan, you looked that up. Here, Monkey, I'm gonna ask you. Okay.
Okay.
So, what would your definition of a civil infraction be?
Like, I mean, there's legal definitions already for a civil infraction. Civil
I know,
infraction is
I'm
things
just-
like speeding ticket.
Here's
So
Huffington
what's
Huffington
the
Post.
difference?
Thursday debate with the 2020 Democrat candidates. All but 2 of the Democrat presidential hopefuls backed the proposal to decriminalize unauthorized border crossings on the second night of the first 2020 Democrat debate. Boom. All of them but 2, dude. Proven right again.
Okay. Here. Do you want to answer that and then I can
the
come back?
Castro
Or
thing.
do you want?
Well, I mean, hang on a second. Could you send that to me? Because I don't
I mean,
remember that
literally-
being
I
the
literally-
specific. Can you send that to me?
I literally Googled 2020 Democrats decriminalized border crossing, and there's a million articles about how the 2020 Democrats, all but 2 of them, supported decriminalizing illegal border crossings.
Yo, Electric Fan, do you mind just putting it in the general just cause?
Sure.
Thank you. So, Monkey, you're telling me it's like a speeding ticket, but that's not really a definition, is it? I mean, you could say the same thing about, stealing a vehicle or whatever. Somehow contributing to,
Is that
into a
considered
negative thing.
a civil infraction under the law?
It's not a civil
Well,
infraction right now. It's a
it's
crime.
civil
You can go to
yeah.
prison for stealing a car.
Well, you can go. Okay, so you're saying right now under current law, immigrating here illegally is a civil infraction by definition.
Yeah, look it up.
Okay.
I mean, I follow some immigration lawyers. I listen to their podcasts. They talk about it all the time. I was also going to push back. I was trying to find specific tweets where
Actually,
he talks about chain migration because that's largely a myth.
Electrofan, do you mind if you could do that for me? I know you're a lawyer, so you probably have better connections.
Wait,
and know
do
what
what?
on the internet.
Do what?
You broke up.
What type of law do you study? Do you practice?
Commercial and tort litigation.
Okay, not immigration.
But
No,
I'm
not
sure.
immigration.
I mean, you
I'm
do.
going to default to the immigration lawyer who's been working hard on this for decades.
Okay. I think defaulting to any specialist just avoids the reason for talking about a topic. Which, what is this really about? We're not. None of us are experts on anything we really talked about tonight. So why should we do that now?
Well, I mean, when you say something false like chain migration and how it's this big issue, there's literally no way that an immigrant who's here can actually petition to have a family member come over. That's not a real thing.
No, but when people apply and they have family members here, it increases their chances of getting visas and getting green cards and everything else.
And why is that a bad thing? Wouldn't we want them here if they were family, if they're living here and working well for the country?
Well, I think spouses and kids, I think, yeah, that's fine. But when you start talking about cousins and aunts and uncles, that's why it would be better.
But you're
to have
not.
people
You
come
literally
in.
cannot.
Hold on, let me finish. Let me. It would be better to have people coming into this country who actually have skills, and for jobs that actually need them, as opposed to just having people come in just because they're the aunt or the uncle or the cousin of somebody else, and they could end up as a public charge. They could not have the skills that we need as an economy, and so that's why it's better to have a merit-based system, because it's better for the country as a whole, while still maintaining the benefits for spouses and kids, but cutting it off at that point. That would be better for the country.
But I mean, again, that's not a real thing. They're not actually able to petition for a cousin to come into the country. They're not able to petition for an uncle to come in the country. That's not a thing. Yes, they can petition for their kids to come here and a spouse, but they're not like getting their grandparents and all their cousins over here. That's not a real thing.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Do you mind if you could look that
Okay,
up for
cool.
us?
I thought I'm trying to look up right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, a friend of mine posted in my chat, said if you're an unauthorized immigrant in the U.S., you're committing a civil violation. Being present in the U.S. without a valid immigration status, that's breaking a law, but it's not a crime. In the same way that violating the speed limit isn't a crime. But if you cross the U.S.-Mexico border between ports of entry without papers, you are committing a federal misdemeanor, illegal entry.
So that is a crime.
If you're...
Right.
Specifically, it says if you cross the U.S.-Mexico border between ports of entry. So if you go in through a port of entry, it's a civil infraction. It's a civil violation.
But that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, but
We're
I mean
talking
most
about people
immigrants
avoiding...
most immigrants come in via ports of entry.
But those are, again, we're not talking about the points of entry because you're able to do their paperwork all that through there. We're talking about people who either go around that area or you just try to ignore it and get to the country that way.
I'm gonna have to look this up again.
Sorry to derail for a sec. Looking up visa status, it looks like as this says note, grandparents, aunts, uncles, in-laws, and cousins cannot sponsor a relative for immigration.
Thank you.
Yeah, that you don't have to sponsor them for them to have a preference. There's 4 levels of preference, and absolutely,
You're
aunts and
pivoting.
uncles and cousins get the preference. I never said that they can sponsor somebody or it's an automatic thing, but we have a family-based preference system where it's not just an easy yes or no, this you can sponsor them or not. There's an actual preference system that there's a multiple factors that go into a decision when the U.S. Citizen Immigration Services makes a decision.
Okay,
Yeah,
and how
so
often do they
absolutely
actually
into it.
approve that though?
The fourth preference is actually brothers and sisters. That's the most extreme it goes to, is brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens or spouses and minor children, provided the U.S. citizens are at least 21 years of age.
Hey, Leon, do you mind if you can
Preference.
put that in general for us?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
We moved on to a different thing, but yeah. So
Right, so
chain
we were
migration
talking-
is not a thing. We accept that. We've heard the argument against it. You know,
No, it is.
I highly doubt. Well, how can you honestly prove that? How can you prove
Okay,
that they
the
have
first-
favorable view of letting people in if they're U.S. citizens, when they're literally
It's
saying
written
that
into
they can't sponsor them, and you're pivoting to, well, they can't sponsor them. Of course they can't. It just makes they're just nicer to them.
No, again, I explained this once, I'll explain it again. There's a preference system where there's multiple factors that when the USCIS makes a decision on whether to grant somebody a visa or a green card, there's multiple factors. There's preferences for sons and daughters. There's preferences for spouses and children. There's a third preference for married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens and their spouses and children. There's preferences for brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens and their spouses and children. And so that's the entire reason why Trump wants to move from a family-based preference system to a merit-based system.
You said cousins. You said cousins. You said
Right.
cousins, grandparents,
So-
things like that. And as Leon looked up, it extends only in the extreme cases
let me
spot.
explain it to you. Let me explain it to you. It's called a chain because there's multiple links in the chain. So the first person comes in and they get their sons and their daughters, their spouses, their children, their brothers and their sisters, and all their spouses and all their children. Those people come in, and then it's the next link in the chain. And they
Can you prove
get
that?
all their...
Can you prove that, or are you just saying it? Because it's a talking point on the right. Because yes, it is a talking point on the right.
Well, I mean,
Accusing me of saying talking point. Yes, it is. It is a talking point. And like I said, I follow this lawyer who works in immigration, and every time he hears the phrase chain migration, he gets furious because it's not a real thing. And he has to explain it over and over again because it does not exist.
Okay, so
It's
first
a
of all,
talking point.
if the fact that people can come in here because I'm your sister, your daughter, your wife, or whatever, based on that, and I already have my visa and my citizenship and all that, I think that would be considered chain migration. Now, I also will admit, lctrfan, you did say cousins and all that when you originally stated this, and I don't think you're really accepting that you previously stated that.
Well, again, because it takes a couple of links in the chain to get there, but it does happen.
Meanwhile,
Well, I mean,
how long does it take to apply for citizenship in this country? Minimum
it takes a long
2
time.
years. Yeah. Yeah. So, how is this a problem if they're just continuing to wait? And that's why I asked you to prove how often this happens. Because it's very debatable if it even is a problem. We want to attack a problem that isn't even a thing.
So wait, what problem are we talking about right now?
Chain migration. This is why it's a myth. You're
it's not a
worried
myth.
about a thing that isn't actually a problem. Does it happen? Can you prove that it happens? Can you prove that this is actually something that continues to happen and that this has a negative effect on the country?
Yes, absolutely. Chain migration is officially known as family reunification under federal. It's the most common legal form of immigration to the United States. According to the DHS, 240,000 immigrants were categorized as family-sponsored preference in 16. 566,000 came as immediate relatives, spouses, children, parents. So you repeat that process multiple times, spouses, children, parents, and then all their spouses, children, parents, and then all their spouses, children, parents.
But is that happening? Is that happening?
It's the most common form of it, dude. It's
literally you can't prove it. You can't prove that it's actually happening. But you haven't.
It's
you
Department
have
of
not.
Homeland Security. Official government statistics by the
Yeah,
Department
they
of
talk
Homeland
about
Security.
kids and spouses, and you're talking about repeating it over and over, but it doesn't actually happen that way, does it?
Well, let's be clear. If you're talking about kids and spouses, you could call that chain migration because you got one person who brings the rest of the family over. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but some people might view it as a bad thing.
I mean, no, he's talking about the chain is one family comes here, they're related to another family, and they're able to get that family to come here, and so on and so on. That's what he means by chain migration. But again, that's a thing.
Unification. It's federal law.
Okay, and it extends to who? Spouses, children. At most, maybe a brother, maybe a sister.
Well, I mean, I think just saying that chain migration doesn't exist, maybe not his version of it is what you mean.
Yeah. The talking point of chain migration. The fear that this is something that they're going to overrun our country. That is not a thing.
I don't think he really means that it's overrunning our country. I think he has the impact of immigration, period. Am I wrong about that?
Well, and the real point is that there's a reason why we should move away from the family-sponsored preference system and the family reunification system and more in favor of a merit-based system, because just allowing people to come in based on family when they might not have the skills or they might not be a net positive for the country as a whole, and that's the real issue is whether we're going to go with actual merit.
Let me ask you this based on that, because that's very, very strange thing to say. Because essentially, it sounds to me like you're saying that if their family isn't considered a net positive for this country, the family can't come here, but one person can.
Yeah, I think immigration decisions should be based on each individual application and whether the.
How can you decide whether or not a child is going to be beneficial to the country? When
Well, I mean, you could argue that it's as of its current form, it's not. Maybe in the future, but I mean, I think this is more of a moral question than a really whether it's going to benefit the nation. Because I honestly think it doesn't really benefit a nation for having someone who's coming in for a work visa, but parts that he's bringing in doesn't work. They could argue that we should ethically do it because we're essentially separating the family, but saying that it somehow is beneficial, I don't think is the right move to make.
Well, yeah, and I'm not talking about spouses and your minor children. Like I'm
But that's what the law
specifically
affects.
supporting. I'm specifically supporting what President Trump has proposed, and the White House's immigration proposal aims to limit chain migration to only spouses and minor children, and that's what I'm talking about.
Well,
But
I
it's
think
already
that's-
limited to that. We already looked it up. It's already limited to that.
No, well then why are the liberals so freaked out about Trump trying to limit it to spouses and minor children?
Here, do you
It's
mind if
not
someone
limited to
could do a
spouses and
little
minor children.
just to
You
see
can
if
do.
it changed underneath Trump? Because it might. I don't know. It might have.
Out of
No,
curiosity,
it would have to. It would have to be by Congress, and they haven't passed it.
I've got an aunt who's living in America. She's a British citizen. She's got American kids. How do I go through the process of chain migrating to the US? What would be the first step for me if I wanted to go to the US through my aunt?
Probably apply for a green card.
She's
This
my
is
aunt.
maddening.
Keeping in mind, so she's got
Just
2 kids of her own. But that's
Absolutely
my only relation to
maddening,
her.
and I'm
But
trying
she is my
to
aunt,
hold
and we
it
have heard
together.
how, you know, like nephews and aunts and stuff are getting in based off their aunts. So I'm just kind of curious how I would do the same thing.
I assume you would just apply, and then on the little form fill out that says, "Do you have any family?" Then you would fill it out.
But it does say, therefore we already went over this, that you can only do it for your you know, your people you've married and also your children. So how would I use my aunt to get into the US?
No, under the current system, you can also do brothers and sisters and their spouses. And so, yeah, if it's not a brother or a sister or their spouse or their kids or something like that. But dude, the thing about it is though, is this like the actual immigration law is incredibly convoluted and complicated.
So wait, hold on.
It's not like there's not just like an easy, straightforward answer to like, oh, how do I use the XYZ to increase my chances to get an American green card? It's like, dude, this shit's like so convoluted and bureaucratic. It's a bureaucratic nightmare to try to get through.
Here, Ledger. I think he had something then. So we do know that when it comes to brothers and sisters, right? They get preferential treatment, right?
Right.
They're the last ones that can even get in.
Okay, so based on that idea, you could call it his form of chain migration. You know, if the sister and brothers, you know, are fully grown and they have their own family. So essentially, you are, you know, taking in more families on preferential treatments based on that definition. Because if they came in, then of course the government would give preferential treatment to their family.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And that's the change.
So they'd have to be a US citizen first, though, right? Before we can do this.
I think someone has to be a U.S. citizen.
So,
Or-
like, just because my
Okay.
aunt has a green card, which is what she's got, she can't help me get in yet. She has to
And-
first become an American citizen.
Yeah,
So
correct.
I'm gonna
You
ask
have-
this
you do have to
again.
become a U.S. citizen.
So
I'm gonna
that takes
ask
how
this
long?
again.
Takes time.
So the
because
way it
you
would work is
still-
like your mother would have to ask to be a citizen, and then by her she can bring you into it, and she would get preferential treatment because she's the sister of your aunt.
So I'd be waiting 10 years or so before I could even get into
Yeah,
it.
pretty much. But I again,
minimum.
he's not completely wrong. By this.
But I mean,
idea.
I'm gonna keep going back to this. Can you prove that this happens?
I mean, I think
Yeah,
we just did,
look
didn't
at
we?
look at the
No.
Department of Homeland Security statistics and the immigration laws and regulations.
Does that specifically say
official-
that families of families of families are coming here via this chain?
Yeah, because
And
it's actually the
I do
number-
really
it's the
want to
number
state
one-
just to get it out there that you know, I actually have no problem with them coming over here like this. I really don't care if they bring their family, because as I keep saying, immigration is a net gain for a community and the country. But yes, you can't prove that, you know, someone's moving here and their brother is coming here bringing their family and that and that and that. And even then, like Leveler said, we're talking about a minimum 10 years before they can do it.
That's just going off my aunt as an example. Though
Yeah.
actually with my aunt, she's not really my aunt, so it'd be a bit longer than that, but I'm not going to go into the specifics of my family.
Understandable. Understandable.
I call her my aunt, so we'll just say she's my aunt.
I did also want to push back because I did look and found a article that actually defines the section 1325 that you were talking about.
Where does this article come from?
I found it from Vox.
Oh.
Oh no.
Just because you don't like the article doesn't make it untrue.
No, I mean, I'm willing to hear it.
States the section of Title 8 of the United States Code that makes it a misdemeanor for immigrants to enter the United States without papers. Castro wants to get rid of it so that being an unauthorized immigrant in the U.S. would still be a civil offense, but no longer a federal crime.
So it is a federal crime.
Right.
Well, again, it's a civil infraction, civil violation.
Right now, it's a federal crime.
Right now, it's both. It's both.
It's both. I mean, it's.
I mean, if it wasn't,
It's at the civil violation level, but yes, it's federal.
Well, no, it's a federal crime because if not, then what he would say would be completely worthless. Why would he say he wants to do something if it's already like that? That makes no sense.
Hey guys, I'm gonna take a quick pee break here. Give me 60 seconds.
Cool.
Yeah, no problem.
And by the way, when you keep on saying, immigration is a net positive, it doesn't really. God, it just that seems like the diversity is our strength argument. It is nothing really substance to it.
Well, I'm basing it on study.
I think it's based on your studies, not really just study.
I mean, it's a peer-reviewed study on the economic impact of illegal immigrants and, well, immigration as a whole.
I've done research on certain peer review articles are skewed a certain way, and some make no sense at all, but they're still certified for some reason. So most of the time, I don't really trust that unless it's hardcore data released from like different governmental agencies or non-profit organizations that are designed to look at certain data.
All right, I'm back. Did I miss anything interesting? Or...
Lecture went to the bathroom.
Oh, you did the same thing I did. Great minds think alike, right?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's alright.
I'm trying to find that study right now, so give me a second.
I actually fell over a week ago or so, and my legs still won't stretch out properly. Like it's all cramped up, so it's kind of hard standing up at the moment.
Oh.
I'll be alright.
So,
this has actually been like pretty heated and interesting.
Yeah, I know you've been trying to stay out of it. I hope I've been doing a good job of trying to like moderate the spiciness here.
Actually, there hasn't been a lot of moderation. I think one of my problems is I end up spending too much time looking for articles and data and not enough time talking.
Yeah, there's a lot of gish galloping going on here.
Yeah.
So,
and...
what were some of the other topics you wanted to do as well? By the way, Leon.
Oh God, where to bring it up? We had that one. Oh God, 2 of these. Bipartisan background
by the
checks
way,
required for all.
I just wanted to say this. Maybe I should wait till Lecter comes back, but there are federal, state, and civil level civil infractions, or city level civil infractions. So it can still be considered a civil infraction if it's called a quote-unquote federal crime. That would still, this article was stating it as a federal crime, but that would still be a civil infraction.
So you're saying it could be both at one time, right?
No,
I'm
saying
back, by the way.
Two things at once.
I'm saying it's a civil infraction on the federal level. They might use, in the article, they might use the word crime because they're not lawyers. They're, reporters writing a story. But that doesn't mean that the crime in the way that you mean it, like a reason to send them to prison.
Reporting about law stuff is always really bad.
So again, going back to Castro, it doesn't seem like he's talking about the city could sue this person. It seems like he's saying federally this would be what we've been saying.
I'm just going to say outright, one thing that really annoys me about newspaper reporting is when they say the European courts, when there's like 3 different European courts. They never say which one they're talking about. It's really irritating.
I'm going to attempt to find this study.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on that when I was looking at Dankula's courts.
Oh, Yeah, he would have gone to the European. No, he didn't go to the.
He went to the
European court.
Scotland court, and then his lawyers were trying to get him to go to the UK court, but he refused to. He said it was too much money.
Yeah, you have to appeal through up to the highest court in whatever country you're in before you can appeal to the European Court of Human Rights. So he would have gone through the Scottish Court of Session to the Supreme Court in the UK, in London rather, and then to the
Yeah.
European Union.
I don't think he was going to the EU one. I think he was going to like from Scotland court to the UK court.
No. The European Court of Human Rights isn't an EU court.
Okay.
That's why I'm annoyed at articles that say the European courts, because there's the European Court of Justice, which is the EU court, and then there's the European Court of Human Rights, which is a separate institution.
I think that's more of a UK problem for not changing their name, right?
No, it's,
That's my
the
point,
European
and they
Court of
don't
Human
like
Rights
it.
has existed longer than the EU has.
Because to admit that would admit
Okay.
that we're
Sure,
overdoing it in this country
Just real quick, I know
currently,
it's not
the way we're doing it.
Whilst Mark is looking up his thing.
Yeah,
The
I'm
European
having
Court-
trouble getting the study to download. It downloads on a separate file.
No, it's
But
fine.
the economic benefits from immigration from the American Economic Association by George J. Borges.
So wait, what's the organization from?
It's the. Hang on a second.
You know,
Hey,
I found a way to open the study.
By the way, guys, I'm gonna bow out, but I did want to say I enjoyed talking. Mark,
Yeah.
Monkey, Right Side, True Leveler. Thanks a lot for having me. Thanks for inviting me on. Thanks for letting me chat. I did appreciate it. Of course, I hope you guys all recognize that this is politics. It's not personal. If I got a little bit aggressive there, don't take it personally. I enjoy debating and politicking, and I don't hold anything personally bad against any of you guys. So hope you feel the same.
So long as
No,
you're willing
yeah,
to recognise
absolutely.
the same, that's fine with me. And I haven't really contributed much to this discussion whilst you've been here, but that's just because obviously it's mostly been American stuff. But if you ever want to talk about international law, then I know a lot about that. But that's
Cool. I'm definitely down. Anyways, thank you guys. I'll catch you hopefully on the next one.
Yeah, let me
See
know
ya.
if you want to join on Monday.
See ya.
See ya.
Cool. Thanks.
Honestly,
went
I
about
don't
how I
know if we
thought
could
it
switch
would.
the topic because like I don't really feel that motivated to talk about this.
Yeah, we can do that. Let me.
Okay. Well,
I'm gonna
I
post this.
really quick though, I did
Okay.
post the thing, and Right Side, if you would like to read it, I recommend reading it because it proves what I'm saying. You can look into it if you would like, but it does state that overall immigration is a net benefit for a society.
All right, I mean, I'll probably will give it a check. Check out a little bit of a look.